They tried to humiliate an old man in front of everyone, but they didn't know who he really was. And when the truth came out, the entire plane stood in silence. Before we dive into this powerful story, make sure to subscribe for more real-life moments that restore your faith in humanity. The hum of the jet engines underscored the low murmur of passengers finding their seats. Overhead bins slammed. Announcements crackled. But in seat 3A, there was only quiet. Elliot Graham adjusted his cuffs. The edges of his sleeves were frayed, the once crisp white now softened by age. His shoes, though shined carefully that morning, had lost their youthful glow. Only one item on his person held its dignity untouched by time. A silver pin, the emblem of the U.S. Air Force, worn on the left lapel of his old suit jacket. It was the kind of detail you only noticed if you cared to look. No one did. He breathed in slowly, letting the faint recycled air of the cabin fill his chest. Seat 3A wasn't luxury, it was necessity. After years of battered knees and aching joints, economy was more punishment than passage. This was a gift to himself, a small mercy. "Sir." The voice cut through his moment of peace. Soft but firm. The kind of voice that smiled for customer service surveys, but didn't reach the eyes. Elliot looked up. "I'm afraid we're going to have to ask you to move to economy. We've got an overbooking situation," she explained, already glancing over his shoulder at the line of incoming passengers. Elliot blinked, slightly disoriented. "My boarding pass says." "I understand, sir, but we've got a priority traveler needing this seat. I'll help you find a spot in economy." Her tone was rehearsed, gentle, and absolute. This wasn't a conversation, it was a transaction. Behind her, a sharply dressed young man waited, tapping at his smartwatch, clearly annoyed by the delay. The smell of expensive cologne drifted into Elliot's space, mixing with the sterile scent of the cabin. Other passengers watched but said nothing. Some looked away quickly, uncomfortable. Others gave half shrugs of sympathy before returning to their devices. It wasn't their fight. This wasn't their problem. Elliot's lips parted slightly to protest, but the words got lost somewhere between pride and exhaustion. He could feel the weight of the years pressing against his shoulders again. He'd faced worse, far worse, than the embarrassment of being moved from a seat. And yet, this sting was sharp, not because of the inconvenience, but because of the invisibility. Without a word, he unfastened his seatbelt, slow and deliberate. His joints protested the movement, but he ignored them. The young man was already eyeing the seat, impatient. Elliot gathered his worn carry-on bag, one strap fraying, and took a step into the narrow aisle. It wasn't just his knees that hurt now. There was an ache deeper than bone, the familiar ache of being forgotten. No one knew who he was. Not the polished attendant. Not the business-class passengers adjusting their ties and ordering sparkling water. Not the young man ready to take his seat. No one knew. And yet, with every careful step toward the back of the plane, Elliot carried something more valuable than the tailored suits around him. Decades of stories, of sacrifice, of loyalty. But in that moment, to them, he was just a burden. Just another overbooking mistake to be quietly corrected. A silent fall. Again. The voice that broke the silence. The hum of disappointment still echoed in Elliot's ears as he shuffled toward the back of the plane. Each step felt heavier, not just because of his aching knees, but because of the weight of something far greater, insignificance. Forgotten service. Forgotten sacrifice. And then, a voice. Sharp. Disbelieving. "Wait. Is that Colonel Elliot Graham?" The sentence sliced through the ambient drone of the cabin like a knife. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Even the flight attendant froze in place, mid-step. From the cockpit, a pilot appeared. Young, barely older than 30, uniform crisp, but slightly askew from hurried movement. His eyes locked onto Elliot with a mixture of shock and reverence, like someone spotting a myth made flesh. "Ladies and gentlemen," the pilot began, his voice rising with every word, "this man right here, he saved my father's life." The words didn't quite register with the crowd yet, but the tremor of emotion in the pilot's voice demanded attention. "In Vietnam," he continued, stepping further into the aisle, ignoring the bewildered glances from the crew. Da Nang. 1970. My father's helicopter was on fire. No way out. Everyone gave up hope, except him. Now every passenger was looking. This man right here, he pulled my father out of that inferno while taking enemy fire himself. My father named me after him. The entire cabin was holding its breath. You could hear the faint buzz of fluorescent lights, the faint shifting of bodies in leather seats. Elliot's mouth opened, closed. He couldn't speak. His throat was too tight. The businessman who had taken his seat was shrinking visibly, like he wanted to slide under the armrest and vanish. The flight attendant's hand trembled slightly, still holding her roster of upgrades. The pilot squared his shoulders, lifting his chin. My family exists today because of him. And you're telling me, you're moving him to economy? It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. And it hung in the air like a thundercloud. What followed wasn't forced or coordinated. It started small, a single clap, hesitant, from someone in the middle rows. Then another. And another. Soon, the entire business class erupted in applause. Real applause. Not the polite kind after a speech, but the wild, grateful kind usually reserved for welcome home celebrations. Some people stood, others wiped tears without understanding exactly why they were crying. It was no longer about Elliot's story alone. It was about justice. About something deep buried, and suddenly awakened in the shared human heart of that plane. Elliot, still frozen by shock and humility, finally managed a hoarse whisper. I was just doing my duty. But duty didn't mean invisibility. And on that flight, invisibility was finally undone. No one sat down. No one stopped clapping. Silence never returned to that cabin in quite the same way. For the remainder of the flight, there was a quiet reverence in the air, as though each passenger had realized something profound had happened here. Not just a correction of a mistake, but a realignment of values. The pilot, still flushed from emotion, escorted Elliot back to his original seat in 3A. No arguments. No corporate policies. Just human decency in motion. The businessman in the tailored suit had the decency to move without protest, his gaze fixed downward. As Elliot eased himself back into his rightful place, there was an unspoken agreement between them, not of forgiveness, but of understanding. The flight attendant, visibly shaken, brought over coffee herself, placing it gently on his tray table. On the house, she whispered. Her earlier indifference had been replaced with something closer to shame. During the rest of the flight, passengers who normally buried themselves in emails and in-flight movies found themselves sneaking glances toward 3A. Not gawking. Just watching. Witnessing. And when the plane finally touched down, the usual rush for overhead bins didn't happen. Instead, row by row, people waited. A line began to form. One by one, passengers came forward, not for autographs, not for photos to plaster online, but to offer something more meaningful. Thank you. You deserve better. My grandfather fought in that war. Thank you for bringing someone's father home. One woman gripped his hand with trembling fingers. My brother never came home, she whispered. But today I feel like someone's brother did. Tears welled in Elliot's eyes, not from pride, but from release, the slow, patient relief of decades of invisibility cracking open to reveal something shining underneath. Dignity. No flashing cameras. No viral moments. Just people. Recognizing another person. At that moment, Elliot wasn't a hero because of what he'd done decades ago. He was a hero because finally they saw him. No medals were pinned that day. No ceremonies. Only something deeper. Respect. At last. Sometimes, the world forgets its true heroes. It forgets that behind worn suits and tired eyes lie stories of unimaginable courage, of sacrifice, of lives saved in silence. But on that flight, justice didn't wear a uniform, it wore respect. That day, Colonel Elliot Graham didn't ask for applause. He didn't ask for recognition. He asked for nothing. And yet, he received everything that mattered. Honor. Gratitude. And finally, the respect he deserved. If this story moved you like it moved us, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Real stories. Real people. Respect deserves to be remembered.